Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Motion to adjourn this meeting. There's a speakers list and there's a speaker on the list.
There's no speaker list
Yes,
on the
there
agenda.
is.
Not on the agenda.
This is a late item.
There is no speakers list because there's nothing on the agenda. And if you check the rules, you'll see that that's the correct procedure.
So is there another regular council meeting right now?
No, there's not.
Regular scheduled.
No, there's one scheduled for next week. The regular meeting is next week. This is only scheduled to do the fourth readings and third readings for the various tax.
Could we take 5 minutes to talk to you about Cape Roger Curtis and the docks?
You can take 5 minutes. I don't know if anybody wants to sit around.
Andrew, speak up for us.
With this many people here, it is a sign of extreme disrespect to not hear from
You can both and speak up.
me off the docks.
The docks, Alex.
Oh yeah, that's right. Look out and walk out.
Darren, speak up for community service.
I don't
Please
think.
hear
I
what
Hang on. It is. Hang on.
Let's hear what they have to say.
Hang on. It is that kind of militancy
All we're asking is to let her speak, and then why don't you let her speak?
you can speak. I do not prevent you from speaking. All I ask you to behave. And if you act the way you are, you can still speak, but I will not stay here.
Well, you're just.
Do you understand that?
Okay,
You're not
let's
representing us then.
let
So there is a
Melissa
speaker.
If there is respect on
You
your
were
side,
respecting us by denying her the ability to speak, so let her speak.
you can speak, but you're asking probably for us to stay. And that depends on an understanding of certain civility. So, do we have that understanding?
Yes.
If you
Okay.
let her
If you play the
speak,
game, yes.
if you listen and let her
If you don't play the
speak.
game, there's no understanding. Because you are turning around and you are just playing the game with all the regulations. That doesn't work like that. So if
It
you
works in the rest of the civilized world. It works.
yeah, but you are not representing us
It works in the
anymore.
rest of the civilized world.
Please, could everybody just be quiet? There is, the intention of right now is that council listen to concerns from the community. And those concerns are going to be expressed by a speaker. Council is here. There's no cost to council to listen to the concerns. In fact, it's to your benefit. I would suggest we all be quiet. We let the speaker speak. Council may have questions. Run this in a civil dialogue.
Mr. Mayor, if I make a suggestion that we have maybe former Mayor Turner be right now the spokesperson and guarantees a certain civility, and then let us listen. I'm quite happy to listen, but only if certain rules are followed. I'm not here to be yelled at or be tried to
And
be
we're not here to be
intimidated.
lectured either.
Okay.
Okay, well, you see, that's not the way it works, and that's not the way it worked a few years ago either. And so when you, Brendan, when you come to council and you say, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we want to be heard, it's fine and dandy, but a few years ago, that council didn't listen to the population. And I want to keep, I want to follow precedent. You as a lawyer will understand that. I want to follow precedent.
And I would like to speak to that. The previous council always had the speakers list. They had their meetings at night so people could attend. They had a speakers list, and when people signed up, the first few minutes of the meeting were used as a service to the community, that community members could speak up about issues that were important to them. And I think that we all appreciated having that opportunity, and we all very much missed that opportunity. And we now would like, again, to have that opportunity today. And we have a spokesperson. You are not going to hear from all of us. We have a spokesperson. We are organized. We are not here to waste your time. We're here to make some good points, and I think you should hear them. I think it would be a great disservice to us who care so much to not hear what we have to say.
Why does it have to be done this week? Why can't it be done next week? When there's an open meeting,
Many of us have taken time off work to be here today so that we could be in front of you.
Without any discussion with staff as to, you know,
We're going to, with all due respect, we're going to spend more time talking about this than we would if you simply let Melissa speak and make her points. Thank you.
Floor is yours.
We have the
Melissa.
assurance that it's civil, then I'm quite happy to stay here. But if it's,
Thank you, we appreciate it.
I mean, it's informal, it's just, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
part of the
council's
council
finished.
meeting, yeah.
We're
So,
adjourned.
ultimately up to the individual councillors to share.
Just also, from a point of the system, in a regular council meeting, there is always open public ability to speak. So this is a special council meeting, so there is a difference there. Having said that, since you're all here, I would be willing to listen and you know, let's not yell and scream, let's try to figure out a solution here.
How long is this going to take, Melissa?
We'll just let it unfold, shall we? I'm not quite sure. I have 3 pages for the space.
That's 6 minutes.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. I want to speak briefly about the proposed docks and the docks currently under construction at Cape Roger Curtis. I think you're aware that many of the people here have also come to speak to that. We've come here today because it's an urgent issue, because the dock construction began last week and the public wasn't notified about it, so we weren't able to plan it into our agenda as such on a different day. And before I go on, I just wanted to remark that I understand that West Van and Belcarra have both recently restricted dock construction, and I think that this is an indication of changing standards and values with respect to dock construction, and it's not just a Boeing issue, it's a broader issue. So why no docks at the Cape in particular? The Cape shore north of the light station has high beach values because the intertidal zone is low and rocky and extensive, such that one can walk or scramble for a long way, and the views to the sea are particularly scenic. This is the largest accessible rocky intertidal zone on Boeing, full of tide pools, and rightly popular with residents and visitors to the island. Along most of the western Cape coast, the beach has a shallow incline, which means that any dock has to be very long in order to reach the deep water for anchorage. And unlike most of Boeing's shoreline, the coast is particularly exposed to strong westerly and southwesterly storms, which means that any docks on that side require very large infrastructure in order to withstand the weather. So a rationale for action is preservation of the quality of public recreation sites such as the beaches, avoiding dock locations in exposed and unsuitable areas due to the requirement for large-scale infrastructure, and protection of an aesthetically and ecologically sensitive area. Okay, can I have your water?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, that got up first, but it's very dry now.
Sure.
Thank you. So I brought, in a way, a programme of action. What can be done about the docks as things stand? And this is a list, and then I'll speak to the points. First of all, you can exercise your jurisdiction. Having done that, you can exercise your right to require a building permit under the building bylaw. Then you can exercise your right to issue a stop work order under that bylaw. And then you can exercise your right to withhold a building permit under Section 929 of the Local Government Act, which provides for withholding of permits and licenses that conflict with bylaws in preparation. And then you can make changes to the zoning bylaw embarked on by the planning staff at the beginning of this year. So jurisdiction, this seems to be an issue that there's some confusion about, so I'm just going to quickly run through it. There's two types of jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction and territorial. Section 8 of the Community Charter says that the fundamental powers of the Council include regulation of public places, protection of the natural environment, and the regulation of buildings and other structures. And those fundamental powers include the right to regulate, prohibit, and impose requirements respecting property. Everything you need to regulate docks is right there in Section 8. And then BIM also has territorial jurisdiction. In the letters patent, the boundaries of the municipality are described as follows. The entire area of Bowen Island, Finisterre Island and Hutt Island, and an area of foreshore and land covered by water extending 300 metres from the natural high water marks of said islands. And provincial legislation confirms that the municipality and its council may exercise their powers within the boundaries of the municipality. That's in section 11 of the Community Charter. So it's clear that you do have jurisdiction, and the province recognises your jurisdiction. And that's why when the province responded to the dock applications, the province ordered the applicants to consult with BIM prior to constructing the private morages to determine if they need to seek additional approval or authorisation from BIM. So that's jurisdiction. You do have jurisdiction to act. I think there's also some confusion about whether or not a building permit is required. Section 5.1 of the building bylaw says that the bylaw applies to constructions of new structures. Section 2 defines structures as any construction installed on, supported by, or sunk into land or water. Section 8.1 requires every person to apply for and obtain a building permit before building any structure. And section 6.1 says that no person shall commence or continue any construction of any structure unless a building official has issued a valid and subsisting permit for the work. Now, having issued a building permit, having required the owners to apply for the building permit, or to make them aware of the requirement that there already stands, then you can issue, or even without, you can issue a stop work order. Section 21.2 of the building bylaw provides that a building official may order the cessation of any work that is proceeding in contravention of this bylaw by posting a stop work notice. And not having a building permit means that the project is in contravention of the bylaw. Not only that, but the preparations at Lot 13 make it clear that the works there will divide the beach and have a significant impact on use and enjoyment of that beach, which puts them in contravention of this clause from the land use bylaw. Community dock, neighbourhood dock and moorage shall be located such that it will not limit use of or physically divide a beach. So a stop work order will end any construction that's already in the way. And then, having required the owners to apply for the building permit, which they should have, there is a provision in the Local Government Act to withhold permits that conflict with the legislation that is in preparation. The provision allows for a total of 90 days to get the legislation in place before the permit must be issued, or grant the permit, but impose conditions in it that would be in the public interest, having regard to plan or bylaw that is under preparation. So I understand that to mean that you can, while you don't necessarily have to wait for legislation to be in place, you can require them to do whatever you think is going to be in the legislation. So, for example, if in this case you required them to only have floats and buoys, you could give them permission to do that. So, changes to the zoning bylaw. Next stage, after reforming the permit, to get the legislation in place, then the council ought to change the zoning bylaw as it has begun to do by exploring it. And I would recommend these changes. Floats and buoys only on all public beaches. No moorage on the stretch of coast in question because of its exposed situation and creating a separate zone. There are separate water use zones around the island. For example, I think at the Abuja's Point we can't have floating breakwaters or sheds. And you could also consider a moratorium on all dock permits while engaging in a thorough review of dock permitting on the island. So, in conclusion,
Well,
yeah. And just the last point is that the council ought to make sure that the docks are conform with the covenants on the 30-metre covenanted land.
Sorry, what was that last point?
The ocean fronting lands covenant that covers the 30
Right.
metres,
Right.
make sure that the docks are in conform with that covenant, which says that no structures can be built on that land. Given the urgent nature of this matter, I would like council to tell us what immediate steps they intend to take and how they intend to proceed. I think we all need to hear that. Council has received advice from two sources in December that I know of.
How did you find that out, actually?
Well,
Is that on the net?
Conservancy spoke at a public meeting,
Uh-huh.
and from their own planner in February. So we need to know what your immediate plans are, because I think I speak for everyone in that we feel that we have collectively, not in a very organised way, but that we have acted and given council information that we thought would be useful. We haven't really heard very much back in that regard. So at this point we are quite concerned that council acts, and we really need to hear exactly what those actions are going to be and when they're going to happen. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Can you send us a copy of the PDF version of
Yeah.
Harris, why don't you stand up and talk?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, instead of pulling the strings, stand up and talk. We're not going to dump on you.
excuse me, I'm really sorry. No, sit down, please. Sorry, don't mean to be rude. I have been up. I was up till 1 o'clock last night, and I've been up from 5 o'clock this morning drafting, looking up legislation. And if you'll excuse me for saying so, this is what you should have been doing. You should have made sure this has happened. These dock applications have been in the pipeline since about a week after you were elected, and this is 18 months later. So I shouldn't have had to have done that.
Here, here.
These are my words that I drafted to produce. No, I'm not going to say any more because that's not true.
So what makes you believe that we did not have legal advice on this matter?
The fact that you haven't acted.
Sorry?
The fact that you haven't acted in
We
such a
haven't
way,
what?
acted in such a way as to prevent the docks. But I didn't say that you haven't had
You
legal
said,
advice.
yes, you're surprised that you had to find a legislative background and we haven't.
Well, there was a letter
Wasn't
in
that
the
what you
paper-
said?
There was a letter in the paper this week from one of the members of council that said that they blamed the Islands Trust for what had happened. If council understood the issue of jurisdiction, they would not expect the Islands Trust to have had any impact on
The
this
council
issue.
does not communicate by letter, we have letters to the undercurrent. I mean, you're well versed in legalities, you would understand that. Council has taken a position on several occasions, and council has actually, despite letters to the undercurrent, never endorsed has vehemently opposed, has done everything what they could within legal bounds, following legal advice. And it's still coming. We have initiated changes to the bylaw. But council is bound by actually the law. We cannot just act militantly because we would expose the taxpayer to major financial risks. And you will understand that council is well advised to listen to the legal advisors, which we have done.
Okay, so if you, those are interesting points. I'm just scrubbing, there were several of them, I'm just scrubbing to remember what all of them were.
Well,
Okay.
First of all, the submission, that what council submitted to the province requiring, there were several, we would like you to require this study, etc., etc., etc. As far as I can tell, that isn't within the province's jurisdiction to require those things. And even if they did, they don't really have the jurisdiction to act on them because they, as I understand it, the province's powers for, not their powers to turn down dock applications, but their interest in exploring dock applications is very limited because they don't have jurisdiction over the land.
because I'm not a lawyer,
Excuse me,
I'm not in
still
court.
speaking. I allowed you to
We
speak.
have
Can I
legal
speak?
advice.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Thank
but you said 2 minutes.
Could you just finish this, if you don't mind? Now, I've lost my flow, I'm going to have to think about what I was saying.
The opportunity to comment to the island.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, the British Bowen municipality has jurisdiction over that land. The province doesn't. We trump the province in that respect. So, the requirements that the thing that you sent to the province didn't do the job, it would never have done the job. So you may have had legal advice, and if the legal advice led you to do that, then more questions needed to be asked. And in the community, there are several well-informed, very well-informed groups who would have been extremely happy to have commented on that, but you decided to act in a closed meeting without consulting anybody.
I'm sorry, what did we do in a closed meeting?
You drafted the response that you sent to the province was done in a closed meeting, and the first the community knew about it was after it had been sent.
It was signed by staff. Council may have dealt with the issue, but staff sent the letter out as they were supposed to do. So I'm not sure what you're talking about. Your first topic of conversation was jurisdiction. We have limited jurisdiction, which I know you know because you were up at midnight looking up the legislation. We have limited jurisdiction over what we can approve and what we can't approve. And what,
Rubbish. To regulate, prohibit,
well, if it's rubbish, then
suspension.
let's end the meeting. It's a waste of time. If everything that we say is rubbish and everything that you say
Could you say
is the
something
word
for a
of
couple of
God,
minutes?
get over it. Now, listen, Melissa, I mean, I understand that you guys are really concerned about the docks. We've done everything that we can within our power, within our jurisdiction. I know that. Well, that's your opinion. That is your
It's not my
opinion.
opinion, it's fact.
And as a matter of fact, one of the things that really upsets me is that we're continuing to deal with Cape Roger Curtis, which is nowhere on our strategic plan. I want you to know, just in case you haven't read it. That's one thing. But the other thing that's really bothering me a great deal. Now, listen, let me finish. I like you finish without interrupting. Now, I want to know, why didn't you guys deal with Nangin Bay and Deep Bay? Now, there's a jurisdictional problem, and there's something that you should deal with. You've got a former mayor back there who dives and knows the mess that Deep Bay is in. Why didn't you stand up for Deep Bay and Marion Bay? Why didn't you stand up for that instead of dealing with Cape Roger Curtis, which is a dead issue
Okay.
thanks to previous council?
Fair enough, okay. Are you ready to
Well, why don't we get this council on board?
Can I
That's
just,
what people want.
Let's keep
He wants
this,
to talk.
let's keep this to a civil tone,
Yeah.
both ways. Melissa, part of the issue here is that we haven't said a lot because all of dealing with Cape Roger Curtis and our dealings with it and so forth have been done in closed meetings. They haven't been done in closed meetings because we wished them, it's because we were dictated to be in closed meetings. We only hold the closed meetings if we have to under the charter. And because of that, there are issues concerning Cape Roger Curtis that we can't discuss. You can ask the questions and so forth, but we are bound in a situation where we can't necessarily answer them
Can you explain
without
why?
violating that.
I can understand.
And our reasons for closed meetings are always the same. They involve either legal situations where we could be putting the municipality at risk because of circumstances. They involve cash transactions where private property is involved. They are specifically things that are in a limited scope. So we appreciate the fact that you've come, and we are concerned. No question about that. So let's get that clear, that we are concerned, and we are basically doing what we can within our power. And Keith can answer to the fact that, yes, we have our staff are drafting new bylaws because we didn't have any bylaws in place to enforce anything. So essentially, we can't stop somebody building a dock at the moment if they have a foreshore lease that's been granted legally. So,
I think that Melissa has laid out a very clear course of action in terms of legal steps that could be taken. And I think what we would really like to hear today is that there will be follow-up on the course of action that has been raised today. We'd really like some assurance that the steps that we think remain to be taken will be, at the very least, researched and put into action, if at all possible.
Absolutely.
And if not, we would like to know why not.
in many cases, and I'm speaking up here, I think a lot of the things that have been addressed in this letter have in fact been looked at and dealt with. And I don't want to pull you in here, but Judy McLeod is our senior planning staff, who has been involved in this very closely. And do you want to say a word towards that, Judy?
No, I don't think that, no, I don't think that's.
So basically, we will appreciate your time. We will take this into consideration, and if there's anything that is something that we've overlooked, we will obviously look at it.
Tim, do you want to say something?
Just that the legal opinions we've got don't support what you've said, so we've been acting on the legal opinions we've got.
And we want to be very careful in what we do. We're not going to do something arbitrarily because there are a few people on the island who say that we should do it, but if we can't legally do it, we're not going to legally do it. Or we will legally do it, but only if it's legal. You understand? Or maybe you don't. That's fine. I don't care.
Just briefly echo what Councillor Lucas has said. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, and I ought to not examine all of your suggestions in terms of the legal approaches that we can.
Urgently.
Pardon me?
Urgently.
Today.
Because building has begun.
Pardon me?
Urgently. Because building has already begun.
Yes.
That's our concern.
So, all I'm, we're not in a formal meeting right now, right? So just please understand that. So we can't make decisions, but I'm echoing Crow's sentiments that we, in terms of due diligence, we should be looking at that to make sure that you know, we've covered off all of the elements that we've outlined in that document.
And I would like to point out that most, if not all, councillors from day one were opposed to those docks.
Every councilman.
I can't say that, I don't remember, but we were opposed. We have obtained legal advice, and we followed legal advice in so far what we have done. Now, if there is advice out there which goes beyond the expertise of the municipalities' lawyers, let's test it. But just let me say that to keep your expectations low. For many, many years, the ultimate fate of Roger Curtis has been decided by previous councils, hoping and expecting that the doctrine of public interest would hold. That has motivated previous councils to take a very hard-line position. That doctrine of public interest has not held. As a result, we have this disaster out there, which it is. And I don't have to speak in biblical terms, but the sins of the fathers last for 7 generations. Can I tell you that what we see right now?
It was the developers who built it.
With respect,
Yes.
I have heard you advocate for the 59 lots
Sorry?
subdivision. I have heard you advocate for the 59 lot subdivision. And I have seen you argue against having a park, or resisting having a park at Cape Roger Curtis.
I am.
So, with respect, that is all history. But that land on the beach is public land and should be dealt with in the public interest.
I fully agree.
Set out here that land there has 3 special aspects to it that need to be considered when thinking about whether docks should be allowed in the zoning there. One is that it is very low and rocky and has that kind of you can go a long way walking up that beach and it's very beautiful.
Yes, there could have been our public park, as could have most of the coast. We cannot ignore the past because we have to learn from the mistakes of the past.
This has got nothing to do with this is to do with how that public land is dealt with. And there, as I was just saying, there are 3 things, 3 aspects. In fact, I'm just going to read off here because it's easier. The CRC shore north of the light station has high beach value because the intertidal zone is low and rocky and extensive, such that one can walk or scramble for a long way and the views of the sea are particularly scenic. This is the largest accessible rocky intertidal zone on Bowen, full of tide pools and rightly popular with residents and visitors to the island. It's the largest accessible rocky intertidal zone on Bowen. I mean, that's just a fancy way of saying it's a great big wild beach. A big wild rocky beach.
I know the beach as well as anybody else here in the week.
Yes.
And you don't have to tell me that. I'm grieving over that.
I'm still not quite finished. If you could excuse me. That stretch of Cape Roger Curtis there, I can't think of another stretch. I mean, maybe the Sunshine Coast because I don't know it, but I can't think of another stretch of beach like that that has that exposure anywhere in the Lower Mainland, or certainly not in the Sound, because once you get into the Sound, you're kind of hemmed in by the fjord. It is a special area, and it deserves special treatment. And I'm not talking about the history.
And that's why we are all vehemently opposed to the docks.
And then there's 2 other reasons why it should be treated differently. One is that it has a kind of shallow incline, which means that the docks have to be 300 feet long to get out to the sea, which makes them crazily big. And they have to have huge infrastructure so they don't get swept away by the storm.
Yes, it's not a place for building docks. It's
We're in
ridiculous.
agreement.
We are in agreement.
Yeah, right.
So can we stop it?
There is no, the there is no problem with a legislative body when presented with a new situation, responding and adapting to that new situation by using the tools that are made available through the legislation that supports the municipality, such as this thing from the Local Government Act 929 or whatever it was, that says that you can withhold a building permit while you sort out your legislation.
They did not get a building permit.
No, but they are required to have a building permit. The bylaw says that they are required to have a building permit. And the reason that I raised that today is because I have seen a letter that Mr. Walsh has sent out that says they're not required to have a building permit. They are.
That's an interpretation of the law on
It's
your part, and not the interpretation of the law that we received. And an interpretation of the law is what got us here in the first place. That was wrong.
That's a.
Can we see that?
The saying, but that is kind of not a logically sound way of extending that argument. I can appreciate that you've had a legal interpretation that says that they're not required to have a building permit. My reading of the bylaw is that it's clear that they are required to have a building permit. That's something we'd like to
Time is of the essence. You know, and I'm hearing very positive statements from most of council, supportive of not having docks at the Cape. We've got footings in for one dock. It's on the tidal flat area that Melissa described. The footings are now underway at Pebbly Beach, which will completely destroy the aspect of Pebbly Beach. It's right along the south bank. And what I respectfully submit is that we issue a stop work order and conduct a review. If you've got one legal counsel, we've got other legal advice, let's have a review that investigates whether we have the powers to stop these docks from going any further at Cape Roger Curtis. But we, you know, to do that while construction underway will only fetter and harm our interest and the interests of the property owners, and compensation, if any, is due, would only be greater. So let's issue a stop work order right away, and right away get to work on understanding these powers and whether or not we can use our council powers to alter this course. Look at the legacy that Vancouver planners have given us over the last 100 years. We have Stanley Park, we have Kitts Beach, we have Jericho, we've got the whole foreshore from Spanish Banks around.
And we don't have Cape Roger.
And we have Ambleside, and West Vancouver is adding to those lands as the property owners move out. This is our opportunity now for Cape Roger Curtis. It's been under conservation advocacy since 1921. We're not the first people to talk about it, but it's now on your desk. This is your term of duty and your legacy to help us reach us.
I'm not accepting that as a legacy. No, just get over it.
Well, if you have the powers, let's use them. This is where
Well,
we
I guess
stand
that's
today.
the point, isn't it? Because do we have the power? We're going to have to go back to our legal counsel.
And suggest
Probably not, and we don't
and
have.
suggest that our legal counsel is wrong.
We don't have the power to move on a stop work order.
No,
Why not?
we don't.
Because we don't.
We haven't issued a building permit.
According to your interpretation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Melissa, but we're going to talk to the municipal lawyer and get his interpretation. And he's going to readdress this, but we're not going to accept your
Okay,
interpretation.
we've received the information, Tim, so we've received the information. Thank you very much.
Can I make a
We're going to bring this
suggestion,
meeting
please?
to an end.
Could I make a
No,
suggestion?
you've already made a number of suggestions.
John, why don't you
We've
give us
got
all some
somebody
time
here
here?
who's taken it down.
You're
And
so
we
against
know
it.
what your suggestions are, and we're going to we'll deal with your suggestions as we deal with this issue that you brought
I
up.
have an important and relevant suggestion to make. Thank you. There are a number of lawyers on the island, and there are who are informed about these issues, and there are many professionals on the island who deal with these sorts of issues all the time. We have a good group of people who can add to that legal opinion. Legal opinions are not always right. the legal
That's
opinion,
correct.
I know from personal experience that the legal opinion of the municipal lawyers is not always right, because I questioned it back in November 2011. It's always better to get more input and perspectives on something. And so my suggestion is that you bring your legal advice to the community, or find a group of people in the community who can add their perspective to it.
We share your concerns. I would not find anything objectionable to dig further into it.
Neither would I.
So it's just a matter of timing and who is doing it.
Yeah, it's a matter of staff time and staff expense. And we've already dealt with the issue. As we've all said, we've dealt with the issue. We've got legal opinions. We've done all the things that we should be doing. And it's not satisfactory to the public, to certain members of the public.
Well, it's because
And that's
it's
what
failed.
what it's all about. And I'm sorry. Either we go with our legal counsel or we don't go with our legal counsel. And if we start following a path of somebody else's agenda, I'm not interested in doing that. We've got our own. We have to bring Bowen Island into the 21st century, and that's what we're going to do.
I hear everyone, with the exception of our mayor, I'm very pleased with the response that all the other councillors have given today. And I hope that when you soon meet and discuss this issue, which we are urging you to do, that wisdom will prevail, and that the majority of council will move this issue forward fast. You know, Rome is burning here, and we can't afford to sit around and wait. You have to make this a priority. Please.
Needless to say, none of us are shaving our dogs. Yes.
The mayor said